Hello, my name is AlexanderGalushka. I'm a student of Harvard University Extension School. I'm taking class Cloud Computing, and for this class we have to put together final project. And the final project topic I chosen is AWS CloudTrail. Um, AWS CloudTrail is Amazon Web Service that been recently introduced in 2013 to public, and I've been working on this for a few weeks and trying to figuring out what the best way and what the best practices to use this service. I've been working with the primarily API that Amazon kindly put together for this service. So what AWS CloudTrail is, the name speaks for itself. So basically it stores a history of all AWS API calls that you've been making associated to your account. So any events that, well, we can call them events, we can call them API calls. Um, from the CLI tools, from Beantalks or from console, um, everything could be recorded and is recorded if you configure this service. And it's really convenient. I'll show you the advantages of this shortly. What is the actual recording? So CloudTrail records API calls, um, the name of the API calls and who made the API calls, when the API calls been made, and where the API calls were made from. So it will give you the region, and it will give you the IP address, and also it will record the resources that have been involved when you've been doing those API calls. So how does the data get stored? The data stored is in log file. The log file has a string that is stored in JSON format, and this log file is stored on S3 in S3 bucket. So here's an example, a very nice example formatted that I took from Amazon web page, showing you how the log file actually look like. So how can you access the CloudTrail service? You can do it from the console, which is really easy. You just go to their services, then you pick nice icon CloudTrail. It's highlighted right there, right here, and then you will have a GUI where you configure it, and you just pretty much you click 2 or 3 times overall. You provide the name of your trail, you provide their name of the bucket that you already configured or you would like to configure for this service. And you optionally you can do SMS notification if you wish. It marked there as advanced option. I really recommend you to do that, and I'll show you why later. Um, so where I can find those files? Let's say I configured a service, I made the calls, some dumb calls I made, and I would like to see what file look actually like, and how it looks like in my account. So you go to S3 service, then you go to all buckets, then you look for the bucket that you configured for this service, and there you'll see nested folders. The one is AWS logs, then it goes to account number, then you have a trail name, then you have a region, then you have a year folder, month folder, and day folder, and then in the day folder you will see all the logs you need. So I would like to switch over to the demo, the CloudTrail API demo I put together. So I've been doing this in Eclipse using Java, language of my choice. So let me do a quick switch over. All right, and here we go. So what I did is I started with a new project, and I'm going to show you quickly how I do it. So you right-click Explorer window, and then there you have option to to pick the project, you click project and you choose AWS Java project. The little caveat there, the CloudTrail project sample is not listed there. So what you have to do is you can either start from scratch and do it as Java project. I'm not recommending you to do that because you're gonna save you some time if you do pick one of the samples. You're gonna strip off the code you don't need, but you will have your exception class example usage ready, and among those all the services, they're pretty consistent in the behavior, so you can reverse engineer some things. Pretty good idea to use one of the samples, even it's not related to the clouds trail. That's what I did. So, and then let's see what how it came up. So I started with this class. I start with CloudTrail. So I decided to put together quite a few classes. This class is responsible for actually starting, and you can see this method, start trail, starting, deleting, and stopping the trail. Now it has a parameterized constructor which takes as a parameter the credentials, AWS credentials. And so when you start the trail, you have to actually create the trail request. So you have a separate instance create trail request that you have to configure. So you have to set the name of the trail there, then you give a bucket name, then optionally you can give SNS topic. And the reason you want to do it is because you would like to have your notifications to the topic. So it's not going to be just like a file that you're going to store in a bucket, but you want to do something with the file. So I would like to know when the file is available for you, and it's a good idea to have a notification coming into you. And then what I actually did is I bind it SNS with SQS, and then I use Cloud Processing Library to process the file, but I'm going to talk about it later. Okay, so this is my trail class. It's pretty straightforward. So API is not well documented, so I had to dig a little bit into it, and this is a brand new service, not much information available online, and the community around this service is not strong yet. So apparently it looks pretty straightforward, but apparently I spent quite a few hours on this. So I have a few other classes. Those classes are support classes, as I call them. Since you need to show you that you've been doing some calls, making some calls, I decided to just simply start using EC2 instance API. I create a few instances, then you terminate them, and the same I did with S3 buckets. I create a few. Here's where are the buckets. Okay, here we go. So I create a few buckets and then I delete them. Okay. Those sample classes that you see here, those all come from Amazon. So I took them as is, and those are related to CloudTrail processing library that I'm going to talk about while I'm going to be walking through the code in the demo. So let me show you the demo. I'm going to walk through the code. I'm going to run it. I have the screenshots, and it's going to take a while, and I'm going to be running it. It basically takes minutes. This thing is pretty slow. Okay, so first what I do is I get my credentials. Once I have my credentials in, I get the bucket ready. I got the special bucket ready with a special policy. By the way, I had to reverse engineer the policy of it. Not like really reverse engineer, but I started poking around, and there was not much of reverse engineering, but just poking around and figuring out what the policy is. There's not much, again, there's not much documentation on this, and I was able to figure it out, luckily. Anyways, once you create your bucket, then I just show what the bucket's been created. You would like to have your SNS and SQS ready, and then you subscribe SNS to SQS so you can have messages in the queue, all the messages that come from SNS from your topic, saying, oh, the log file is available, and then, ready to be processed. So then you start your, finally you start your trail, and once the trail is started, I decided to play around, as I said, with EC2 instances and then buckets. And after that, I'm switching the gears to CPL finally. So it's a cloud processing library. This library helps you to get the events on the fly, the events that are associated with your log file creation. So whenever the SQS sends the message, you poll for the message, you get the message, and then you can process it if you any way you like. The event will allow you with the data to make some logical decisions. Let's say you've been experiencing some production issues with your instances being terminated and you don't know why, so you kind of group those using this service. So you identify which instance has been terminated, and then you can fix the problem easily. So the output of this, let me quickly introduce you to this one. So this is the executor. So it's configured using the AWS CloudTrail processing executor, and then you have to start it. I use a thread here, and I use the logger that actually display the information to the console. But once it's started, it's just going to pull for messages from SQS that I configured, and then the very important point of this was the property file. In the property file, I modified the SQS URL based on the configured SQS, basically. Okay, let me switch back to the presentation very quick. I'm going to highlight a few more points, and I'm going to run out of time. So, by the way, this is the output of this CPLI. And I was talking about the logger. This is the output of the logger. And I'm just showing the diagram of CloudTrail and working with processing libraries. So you got a SNS, SQS, bind it together, and then this is the library that helps to get the data on the fly and process it. Just highlight that project was really really interesting. I learned a lot, and I refreshed my skills on EC2 instance and SNS and SQS, and there were quite a few challenges. Again, I just described the challenges I had with policy configurations and the lack of documentation and the slow tech support. It's still I submitted a ticket. I gave it a try. It usually takes 10-12 business days to process those tickets if you don't have special technical account open with them. But it's all good. I've been able to figure it all out. So I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation. Oh, by the way, I just quick mention. I'd like to quickly mention the main idea of using the CloudTrail service. Three categories, right? The basic one, I think it's basic one, is helping you to troubleshoot production issues. And a few of those other categories are that using the resources and checking the resources is really a good thing as well. Also, for compliance purposes and security purposes, the CloudTrail is also used worldwide. Okay, guys, I appreciate your time. Thanks, and hope you like my presentation. If you have any questions, you can reach me at my email, galushka at fast.harvard.edu. All right, thanks. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.